Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Path of the Prophets. Today let's discuss Nabi Saleh in the Sinai. So recently I climbed Jebel Musa from the base of the mountain at St. Catherine's Monastery to the top, to the old Fatimid Masjid to pray Fajr and to see the sunrise. And it was a very powerful experience. It was a challenging experience because of the intense cold. You know, sitting in sweaty clothes, and as the temperature was dropping at 7,500 feet, as we moved toward the dawn and the sunrise. But I noticed that as we were arriving, and then the other day we went by the area again, it said something about a tomb of Nabi Saleh. And like, this is a prophet, peace be upon him, who before starting to read the Quran, I was completely unfamiliar with him. He's not in the biblical tradition whatsoever. Neither is Nabi Hud alayhi salam. Nabi Shu'aib alayhi salam is Jethro in the biblical tradition. So there are a number of differences with some of the Arab prophets. So I'm still learning about Nabi Saleh and learning about him and the stories associated with him and the Thamud. Soon, inshallah, I would like to do a video that may be interesting to you about Nabi Hud alayhi salam and the people of Ad. But as far as the people of Thamud, like I said, before reading the Quran, you know, different versions of the Quran, different interpretations, I should say, different translations, I'd never been familiar with this particular prophet nor his people. So I was just doing a little bit of research about his story and his people, and it was interesting to me that the Thamud actually are reported in a number of ancient chronicles or ancient histories from various peoples, and they mention this people who lived in the Northern Arabian Peninsula. So behind me, you will see a branch of the Red Sea, which is the Gulf of Aqaba. And right out straight across from there is the Northern Arabian Peninsula. So that was the traditional territory of the Thamud people, according to some of the things that I'd read. And some of the old Arab historians and geographers had said that the Thamud people are associated with the Nabatean people, the people who built Petra and Medan Saleh. I apologize for my mispronunciations, but you get the point. That so those beautiful ancient ruins, the buildings that are carved, the buildings and temples carved directly into solid rock over in northern Arabia, in the northern Hijaz region, all the way up into Jordan. These are associated with the Thamud in certain instances, or if the Nabateans are the same people or a related people. There's some interesting connections. Also, in one of the stories that I'd read, it was saying how the Thamud people, they had at least a nomadic faction that was not paying tribute to a particular Assyrian ruler, and he was not happy with them. So he dispersed them and forcibly. The Assyrians used to do forced relocation. It was one of the ways that they would punish people. So they did this to the 10 tribes of Israel, the northern tribes, the tribes of Israel. And whereas they left the two remaining tribes of Judah alone, the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom of Bani Israel, they left them alone. And whereas the 10 northern tribes were dispersed, and today they're considered the lost tribes. There's evidence that they were taken up into, maybe up into Anatolia and beyond. There are all kinds of legends and rumors associating them with European peoples, with Peshawar people, like the Pashtun people around Peshawar in northern Pakistan and in parts of Afghanistan. That these might be descendants of Bani Israel, of some of the 10 tribes. And it's interesting that, so these Assyrian rulers, they would forcibly migrate people as punishment. And so the 10 tribes were migrated, but one of the stories is that the Thamud people were forcibly migrated from northern Arabia, and many of them were sent to Samaria. So that's where the 10 northern tribes used to live, what's now in Philistine and Israel. And then they were forcibly migrated there. So if this holds any truth, and then later we see in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah in the Bible, where the scribe Ezra is he's recounting the return from the Babylonian exile into the historic lands of Bani Israel in the Canaan region. He's recounting that there were some people who had stayed from the 12 tribes that were still in the area and had intermarried with local women, and then he forcibly divorced them. And there were a number of very strange instances. And to this day we still have a whole religion of the Samaritan religion, which is it's got connecting. They still keep the 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch, the Torah. They still keep many of it. It's pre-Talmudic, and they still have a number of the ancient scriptures fairly well preserved, apparently. But Bani Israel did not consider them to be genuinely Bani Israel, the ones returning from the Babylonian exile. So some people have suggested that that they were some of the local peoples who had married in, or that replaced the 10 tribes that were taken away, and then the 12 tribes as they were all dispersed. So there were people who came in and took over the land, and maybe married survivors and people who didn't get exiled. And this is all interesting to me, but it's interesting that if the Thamud were pushed into the Samaria region that was now emptied of the 10 tribes, so now the Thamud move in, and then the 10 tribes are dispersed. Some of them do return and trickle back over the centuries, perhaps. But then it's interesting that maybe some of the Palestinians and the local Jews who remained in the Holy Lands over the centuries may have Thamud inputs, genetic inputs, so maybe have relationship to the ancient Thamud people. This is an interesting thing to consider. Now, the grave of this prophet, Saleh, alayhi salam, it's right near, it's purportedly right near the St. Catherine Monastery, a Greek Orthodox monastery at the base of Jebel Musa and Catherine Mountain. It's the tallest mountain in Sinai, the tallest mountain in Egypt, and one of the tallest in the region before you get up near Lebanon and Syria and Israel, where they meet at the Golan Heights region. I believe that Mount Hermon is maybe taller. But if this is the old Thamud grounds behind me, and we know that there was a catastrophe, like because of their sin, they came out of harmony with natural law. They were engaged in sinful behavior, and so there's cause and effect, and so they experienced because Allah programs natural law through kun into everything. Kun is infused into every single thing. It permeates. I don't know if infusing is the right word, but it permeates every single thing. So they came out of harmony. So there's cause and effect. And if we have healthy toxic outputs, then we come out of harmony bodily, mentally, socially, in relationships with other humans, and out of harmony with creatures and with ecosystems. And then there is some kind of, we can cause problems in the resonance, in the morphic field around us and within us. And then it brings cause and effect, which will be perceived as the wrath of Allah and experienced as the wrath of Allah in many cases. And so I want to look deeper into the story of the Thamud, as well as the Ad people, in the near future, inshallah, and be able to break down a bit more about cause and effect and relationships between different people who experience the wrath of Allah simultaneously or within a similar sequence of time in ancient times. Because I don't believe that our histories are completely accurate. I think we've got a lot of distortion and purposeful traps and misleadings inside our histories. And so I want to look into these issues and try to better understand the cause and effect and be able to describe it. Plus, I'd like to know about these prophets that I wasn't raised with this information. But it is very easy to see, because according to these stories, Saleh alayhi salam and some of his followers did survive this catastrophe, this punishment that included thunderclaps, a powerful storm, a scream, some kind of a scream and an earthquake, all like, and then the people's faces turned colors and they died, many of them in their stone houses, is according to the story. And so this may be related to something else that happened with earth force changes that related to other people that may have been punished simultaneously, that were out of harmony, or that it was experienced and interpreted in these ways. It's very interesting to me. I'd like to look deeper into these issues. If you have information about this, please feel free to share in the comments. I want to know more, inshallah. I'm always seeking knowledge and seeking to understand the broader prophetic tradition as well as the Muhammadan specific tradition in its particulars as much as possible. But I can see how Saleh alayhi salam and his people, his followers, many of them who survived may have sought refuge in the Sinai Peninsula, which is right across the water. They may have taken boats, they may have ridden their camels all the way around, because like the connecting point from the upper part of the Arabian Peninsula connecting into the Sinai Peninsula, it's not very far, in terms of camel riding and even walking and boat rides. Now that's subjective, it's going to be far if you're walking or riding camels, but it's relatively close is what I'm saying. So I could see how this may be the case. So anyway, if you have anything interesting to share, and especially I'm also interested how these things, people of Ad and Thamud, how it may be related to possible ancient high-tech wars and other peoples and interrelationships energetically, and how it may relate to our current context and the caliph to come and the corrupter of clays, the liar, the false pseudo-messiah, the antichrist, Dajjal. So may we be protected from his fitna. So until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.